Hey table tennis junkies, this week I'm going to be teaching you about serve return. This is actually a request from my video last week, so if you have a serve that you'd like to learn or if you have questions about serving, put them in the comments and I'll make a video for it. And if you find these videos helpful for your game, then please subscribe and give the video a like, and let's get into it. I'm going to start by saying that serve return, in my opinion, is probably the most technically difficult thing to master in all of table tennis. It isn't a small topic to cover, but I'm going to do my best to give my top 10 tips and strategies to help improve your game, and I'm going to rank them from least to most important. With all that being said, let's get into it. Tip number 10, shorten your stroke versus fast serves. When the ball is coming fast and has a lot of energy on it, it's very natural to want to swing hard as a return. You want to try to avoid this. Instead, try to use that energy that the ball already has to redirect it and shorten your swing so that way you can have a better contact with the ball. When you're swinging big and hard, it's very difficult to get good contact with the ball on the rubber because there's a lot of motion and the ball is moving quickly. So when you shorten the stroke, it's much easier to get good contact. Tip number 9, scout your opponent. If you ever have the opportunity to watch your opponents before you have to play them, then do it. Most tournaments start with groups of about 4 people, and a lot of times you get the chance to see your opponents play each other before you have to play them. Something specific that I watch for is my future opponent's serves, and what I'm doing is I watch their contact, I try to read the serve and try to put myself into the match and say, if he does that serve to me, here's how I would return it. And then I'll watch to see what the actual opponent does to return it, and I'll be able to make an assessment and say, yeah, I chose the right thing, or maybe I misread that serve and I would have done the wrong thing, and you can really learn from it without having any actual consequences. Another thing I watch for is I look to see if my opponent's serves are loopable. And what I mean by that is I look to see if they come off the end of the table. That's really important for me because I am a very aggressive player. I like to loop serves as often as I can. So I want to know that going into the match to see if my opponent is actually serving long. Something else I watch for is I look to see if my opponent ever serves fast. Most people have fast serves, but sometimes they never use them. So I'll watch my opponent play other people and I'll see if they ever serve fast. If they don't serve fast, I'll probably stay a little closer and I'll prepare for the short balls and the half long serves, and I don't really need to worry about the fast serve. If I see that they are serving fast, then I'll probably stay a little bit back and I'll watch for it, but I want to know that going into the match. Something else I watch for, and this is really important and really valuable information, is I watch to see what my opponents do when it's close. So if it's 9-all, I want to see what my opponent is going to be serving because that's generally the serve that they're most comfortable with. And if I have a close game with one of my opponents, they'll probably pull out a very similar serve. So I want to see what they're comfortable with. I want to see what their go-to is. And if I can pick that up before the match even starts, that's really valuable information to have. Tip number 8, watch for when your opponent makes contact with the ball on the serve. So most serves have a lot of motion on it that's kind of meant to fool the opponent. What you're really watching for is the angle of the racket at contact. So if, for instance, if I'm doing a serve and I'm staying under the ball all the way through, and then as I'm contacting and I'm pulling up, the ball is probably going to have topspin on it. But if I'm doing that exact same serve and I'm staying under the ball and I'm under the ball at contact, and then after contact I pull up, I was under the ball at contact, so the ball is probably going to have backspin on it. Really what you're watching for is what my angle is at contact. Tip number 7, learn the serve if you're having trouble returning it. When you learn how to do a serve, you learn the intricacies of how the serve works, and this will help you to learn how to return the serve as well. When you learn how to do a serve and you start to use it against opponents, you can actually learn from your opponents on how to return it that way as well. So if you do a serve and an opponent returns it in a way that you don't like, next time someone does that serve to you, you can return it in the same way that made it difficult for you. Tip number 6, know your game and the type of rally that you want to be in. So like I said earlier, I'm a very aggressive player, so for my game, I'm trying to loop serves, I'm trying to attack them, I'm watching to see if they're long, I'm really trying to get into that topspin rally because that's what I like to be in. But if you're a defensive player, you probably don't want to be looping serves. You want to be more passive and chopping serves and be placing the ball, trying to keep your opponent off guard. So it really kind of depends on your style, and there's like a million styles in between, like a super aggressive and super defensive. You want your serve return to fit into that style of play, whatever it is for you. Tip number 5, be decisive. Make a read on the spin of the serve and trust your read. This is the very best way to learn how to read spin on serves, and unfortunately, it's probably one of the most common mistakes that I see on serve return. An example might be if you're returning a serve and you see it and you think it might be backspin or might be no spin, but you're not really sure, so you come in and you do like a half-hearted push. Well, if you made that push, you didn't really learn anything, because the half-hearted push might have worked for the no spin, it might have worked for the backspin, but you don't really know if it was no spin or backspin. And if you missed it, you could say, well, it probably had more backspin, or maybe it had a top spin, or maybe it was a no spin because it popped up or something like that. But you don't really know, because if you would have done something more decisive, then you would see your error. So if your opponent did that same serve and you came in and you decided, okay, it's backspin, I think it's backspin, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna push it. So if you do that, if you miss it, then you know it definitely wasn't backspin. It was either no spin or top spin. Probably a no spin because you thought it was either backspin or no spin. And if you made the push, if you said I think it's backspin, and you push it and it turns out yes, it was backspin, you learn something on that one too. So it's really important to be decisive and make a decision and trust your decision, because if you don't, it's very difficult to learn. And when you do, you can learn very easily, like, okay, that one was definitely backspin, or it definitely wasn't backspin. Then the next time you see that same serve, if you were decisive the first time, you can decide, okay, this one is backspin, so I'm going to push it, or maybe it's not backspin, it was a no spin, and you can adjust. And already you've adjusted and you've learned the spin of that serve. Tip number 4, don't go too hard. I see this at all levels, but especially with junior players where they're just trying to hit everything as hard as they can. Try to avoid that. Remember that the ball is going to be bouncing twice, once on your opponent's side of the table, once on your side of the table, so the ball will be lower than normal. It also is going to be generally pretty spinny. A lot of serves have a lot of spin on them, and the spin is much harder to read off of serves. So you'll want to be careful for those reasons as well. Just try not to go too hard on serve return. Tip number 3, remember your mistakes. This ties in a little bit with being decisive and also watching your opponent's contact point. What I like to do is I like to take a mental snapshot of the contact of my opponent, and also remember how it reacted off of my racket. When you're returning serves, you really want to remember the mistakes that you've made, because if you don't remember, you're going to make the same mistake again and again and again. But also remember your successes. So if you did something right, then remember that and do that same return if you see that same mental snapshot on your opponent's serve. So for instance, if someone were to serve to you and you think it's a topspin serve, and so you come in and you return it with a topspin over the top of the ball, and the ball goes straight down into the table. Well, obviously you made the wrong choice and the ball was a backspin. So what you want to do next time they serve that same serve is remember that snapshot in your mind of the contact point, and also remember how the ball reacted off of your rubber. So if they do that serve again, you better not be coming over the top of it. You should be coming underneath. And that can be a really difficult skill to do. And it's something you kind of have to teach yourself and learn, because when you see a ball that looks like topspin, you're going to want to come over the top. So you have to force yourself to come underneath the ball and treat it like a backspin, even if it looks like a topspin. Tip number 2, know the order of serves that you should be ready for. This is going to change depending on your skill level, but the fast serves, you should be ready for those first, because you'll have the least amount of time to prepare. The next serve you should be ready for is the half-long serve, because it's going to take longer to get ready for that one, to loop it. It takes just longer time to prepare for that. And the last serve you should be ready for is the short serve, because it'll move the slowest and you'll have the most amount of time to hit that one back. That's a very rough assessment, and it needs to be broken down. So the fast serves are the ones you'll have the least amount of time to prepare for, and the short serves you'll have the most amount of time to prepare for. So you kind of want to be ready for the fast ones first. With that being said, most people don't serve fast very often, and at high levels, almost all serves are going to be short. So it's important to know your opponent to see how often they serve fast, and it's also important to kind of know your level, because the depth of serves will vary pretty drastically depending on your skill level. To give a few examples, at my level, most players, probably 9 times out of 10, are going to be serving short. So the way that I prepare for that is I step in a little bit closer to the table, because it makes it much easier to return the short serves when I'm close. When I was still developing my game, I was looking mostly for the half-long serves. And the reason for that is because people weren't serving fast, but they didn't have the skill level to consistently serve short. So a lot of serves were actually leaking long, and I was able to loop those serves. So if you're at a level where people aren't serving consistently short every single time, then you really want to look for those half-long serves first. And then if it's not half-long, then you can have the time to hit the short serves. If you're playing somebody with a US rating of 2100 or less, I would estimate that about 90% of their serves or more actually come long and are loopable. This is super important if you want to reach the next level of table tennis and break 2000 or beyond. You have to be able to recognize that serves are coming long and are loopable and actually loop them. So if you're preparing for serves, you need to look for that half-long serve and try to loop it if you can. If it doesn't come long, then you'll have that time to come in and push, but recognize when they're long and take that opportunity to loop the serve. A short little story that I like to share with some of my students is that when I was still a developing junior, I was kind of stuck right around the 2000 level. I wasn't really growing very much. And I went to a training camp. It was a US training camp in Florida. And the coach was Mark Nordby, and he worked with me for 2 weeks on serve return looping half-long serves. And this leads me into my number one tip is look to loop serves. So after that training camp, I started playing a lot of tournaments, and I went from 2000 to 2100 to 2200 to 2300, all the way up into the 2500s. And I started winning a lot of tournaments. I won a lot of events at the Nationals in Vegas, and it was all stemmed from looping serves. It's such an important skill to recognize that most serves are actually loopable, and to give it that effort to loop those serves. Even if you miss them at first, you'll start to learn. Remember the other 9 tips, and you'll start to learn, and you'll start to make those loops. And most points are actually determined by who attacks first. Especially if you're an aggressive player, if you want to loop, if you're not a chopper basically, or if you're not a blocker. If you're an aggressive player, you definitely want to loop serves as much as possible, because when you do, you immediately have an advantage in the rally, and you kind of control the rally when you're looping the ball and when you're being aggressive. So if you can get that aggressive and that control of the rally right off of the serve return, it puts you at a huge advantage, and you're going to win a lot of points and beat a lot of players that you probably wouldn't normally beat. Remember that you don't have to go hard on the loop, you just want to get that loop in. Even if it's kind of a slower, spinnier one, as long as it's placed well, you'll have the advantage in the point. It'll force your opponent into a block, and you can be more aggressive on the next one and then just kind of grow from there. So looping serves is my number one tip, and if you're an offensive player, I very strongly recommend you do this. Even if you start missing it first, you'll get the hang of it. Just remember the other 9 tips from this video, and you're going to improve, and you're going to be a better player. That's all the tips for today. Serve return is very tough. It takes a lot of time and a lot of experience, and you have to see a lot of serves before they become comfortable to return. Something that I've done in the past is if there is a person that just has really good serves, a really good player, I've paid them like $20 to serve to me for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour or whatever it was, and it's really helped me to see those tough serves and get better at them, and there aren't any real consequences. Another thing is if you play practice matches, that's a good way to just kind of see serves that there's no real pressure to win or lose, and you can just kind of experiment with the returns. It's another good way, but it takes a lot of time, and you have to see a lot of serves before it becomes comfortable. I should also mention that in my serving videos, most of them I give tips on my next shot after the serve, but I also give tips on how I would return serves if someone were to do that specific serve to me. So if there's a particular serve that's giving you trouble, go check out my video on it, and you'll probably learn some tips not just for the serve, but also tips on how to return that particular serve. This video has a lot of pretty technical information in it, so if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Also, if you have any video requests around serves, put those in the comments and I'll try to make a video for it. If you found this video helpful for your game, then please subscribe and like the video. And thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week.